welcome to another video. I'm so excited to talk about my favorite series I've read so far this year with you guys and break her down. And you know, if you have read this series before, you can like relive it with me, because honestly, I already know that this is one of those series that I wish I could read from the beginning again, not knowing how it goes. You know what I mean? Like, you want to like reread it from the perspective of not having read it. Like, that's how I feel. And so I'm sad it's over, but if you've read it before, you can relive it with me now. And if you haven't read it yet, maybe this will give you a glimpse into the series and you'll be eager to read it too. So, let's get into it, shall we? This series is Chef Kisses, and I don't know if there's any different covers in different areas, but these are the covers I have. The Cool Prince, the Wicked King, and the Queen of Nothing. All right, I'm gonna go book by book, and I'm gonna explain like my favorite parts and the character development and just like go through them each. I will not have spoilers, but I kind of want to put a bit of a spoiler section to this, so I'm going to put that at the end. Cruel Prince. Oh my gosh. Okay, so what can I say from this book? Basically, I have my notes here, just so you know, if I'm looking down sometimes. So basically, I love the Fae storyline. If you're into fantasy, Fae is like this story world that's not really abnormal, in the sense that it's kind of like connected to the human world. There's the human area, the mortal area, and then there's the Fae section. And the Fae has like a sense of magic to it, a sense of kind of elite humanism, kind of, but without being too connected to what a human is. Some of them have tails, some of them have wings, some of them have horns. Like, it kind of depends on the book, but they're always kind of on the outskirts of human world, and they have a sense of magic to them that humans don't have. They have a different look that humans don't have, and a lot of the time they also can't lie. So Fae cannot tell a lie, which is kind of fun because it gives like a human the ability to be like outwit them in that sense. The main girl in this book's name is Jude, and she is a really powerful, strong female character. But this book essentially starts with her parents getting murdered by a Fae named Maddock, and she has two sisters, and one of her sisters is her twin, and she's also mortal, and then her other sister is a Fae, and Maddock is the father of this girl, and he was basically coming to grab her and capture her and bring her back to the Fae world, but also ended up grabbing the other two girls to bring along after the murder of the parents. So we follow along this main character, Jude, trying to fit into the Fae world because she feels like she's more Fae than she is human after growing up there. And she's basically fighting for this power and this ability to stay in the Fae world without just marrying a man to stay there. And she's constantly reminded about the fact that she is mortal and she doesn't have the power that the Fae do, and people are constantly tearing her down for that. But she has this like strength and wit, and also a great kind of plan to her at every step on how she can continue to stay in power even though people are trying to push her down. The High King in the story is also stepping down, so the role for High King is now open, and the High King has 6 sons which are in his bloodline, so the next king would be someone who falls within his bloodline. One of those characters being Prince Carden, which is the youngest king, and he's like wicked and cruel but smart and kind, and he's one of our other main characters. And if you remember what I said about enemies to lovers, you will fall in love with Carden. Just forewarning you. This book is basically a bloodthirst fighting for the crown. So there's like a bloodthirst to be the one in charge and have the crown and be the next king or high king. So many twists and turns and reveals, and it's just like never ending. Once you feel like you know what's going on, there's another twist, and there's not just twists and turns between 1 or 2 characters, it's like twists and turns between like 5 or 6 characters, which I loved about the series. So it was like not just between, you know, evil and good, it was between like 5 different groups of people that you were trying to figure out what was going to happen next. The story also had one of the most powerful enemies to lovers romance that I've ever read. I mean, like, you really kind of hated the guy, but then you also really loved him. Like, I kind of am like, why do I love him in the end? Like, why did I even actually connect with him? But you just do, you know? Black is also really powerful at stringing together quotes in a powerful way that really kind of helps reveal and forecast, is that the right word? Foreshadow what's gonna happen next. So I just feel like there's so many great quotes in this book that made you really think, but then also it was exciting when they would like pop up later and you'd be like, aha, now I understand the like clue. The theme of this novel has a lot of also amazing family moments. So Jude and Maddock and her sisters, there are beautiful family moments within this where you're at one second hating the family, but then another second loving them, and the way that they band together but also show their power against each other is just so good, so good. And then also the cliffhanger at the end is, I don't have any words. That's how good the cliffhangers are. Not only in the first book is there a cliffhanger, but the second book's cliffhanger, don't even get me started, but we're talking about the first book right now, so I won't go on a tangent yet. But just know that each book has such a great cliffhanger, and Holly Black really does a great job of luring you in the whole time. Like, I read these books so quickly, like in a day or 2 days each, and it's just because she has so many different reveals happening, so many different twists and turns, and every second there's like something new going on, and then when you start to kind of get like bored, that's when like the love hits you, and there's like a teensy bit of romance. It's definitely YA, so you don't have to worry if you're worried about too much romance. There's honestly hardly any. There's literally only maybe 1 chapter of romance, and it's probably about 5 pages, and it's nothing that crazy. No smut or anything like that, but somehow that like 1 chapter or that like 1 or 2 sentences here and there like really keep you going, keep you tied, and you're like, okay, like what's going on here? Like, what is the dynamic? You're just trying to figure out the dynamic at the same time as you're rooting for Jude to figure out how she's gonna keep that power. And you're also trying to figure out who's gonna become the next High King, who has the power to like outwit everyone else essentially to be High King when shit hits the fan at the High King reveal. And that's all I'm gonna say for now. Wait till the spoilers at the end. All right, so that's book 1, and it's just chef's kisses. The one thing I will say about book 1 that I was disappointed in was that there's not a lot of character development. So yes, you understand all the characters, and there's a lot of characters to go through, so I understand Holly Black not really going into depth, because this book would turn into like a 600-page book, but you really only understand the characters based on the trauma that they went through, and not so much based on their character development. Makes it so it's harder to connect with the characters. Like I sometimes wondered, do I hate this guy because he's an awful person, or more so do I just feel that the trauma is making him that way? Like, it's hard to tell because there isn't that like development of who he is necessarily, but what has happened to him and happened to her and all of the characters. The next book, all right, let's get into this next book, because this was the best one in the series. Tell me I'm wrong, because I'm not. This one's the best one, and let me tell you why. I didn't think that there could be a better cliffhanger than the first book, but this cliffhanger just tore my heart to shreds. Tore me to shreds. Like, I was starting to like really ship for Carden, you know? I was like, I ship you. I care for you. And then I hated him. I hated him so bad after the end of this book that I honestly was so confused. I was like, am I reading it wrong? Did I read something wrong? Am I missing an underlying story here? Because I'm really confused why it ended the way it did. And I need to read a third book right now. That's how I felt after this. In this book, the Carden and Jude dynamic and character development starts to build a bit more. So like I said in the first book where it was lacking, this book really built it up. So you really start to see the character development of the characters, which makes it a lot easier to get attached to them and a lot easier to like really be attached to what's going on in the story, because yes, the power dynamic is really alluring to understand like what's going to happen next, but if you don't have that character attachment, then you don't really care. So once there is more character development and I felt more attached to who I should be rooting for, I felt more attached to the plot and who was kind of winning and not winning. Carden also in this book becomes more of his own like powerful character. So whereas in the first book he's kind of just, I want to almost say just there, he becomes a lot more powerful in the story and has his own development and his own scheming, which was just so exciting to see. Like some of the things he whipped out of nowhere, I was like, whoa, you had this ability this whole time and you just like didn't care to use it, what? And there's also a new character kind of used in the story of the Undersea. I've never really read about the Undersea in a Fae story before, but the Undersea is like an underwater world and I found that really fascinating. So not only are we seeing like mortals, the Fae High Kings, but you're also seeing the Undersea, and there's another like Fae group. So there's about like 4 different plots of groups that are all kind of fighting against each other, and it's so fascinating to see like how she can develop each section and develop schemes for each section. Like the amount of work it would take to write this book and think everything through is just mind-blowing to me. One is my favorite. So if you struggled a little bit with the first one, don't throw away the series yet. Read this one, and then if you still hate it, then throw it away. On to book 3. This is The Queen of Nothing, and I loved it. But like the second one still has my heart, you know? After kind of thinking about this for a while, the second one has my heart. This book definitely starts off in a very agonizing way because of the ending of book 2. It just starts off really sad, kind of like all of a sudden we're thrown back into the mortal world and you are kind of sad about it. You're like, is this how it's going to be? Like, are we not going back to Fae world? Is something like, is this a different power dynamic switch? Like, are we no longer really getting Jude's perspective as much in this book? It just started off very agonizing because you don't understand what's going on. You're kind of sad that it ended the way it did, and then you're not getting the reveal of the truth for a very long time. Kind of wish that the ending of this book wasn't so rushed. I felt like we had like the fight scene, for instance, that happened in the story only took up about like 2 pages. The build up to the fight was pretty long, but the actual fight itself was only 2 pages, which I was like, what? Why so short? I do wish there was a little bit longer because you get attached to the characters and you want to feel that like relief of the ending with them. Also, I really wish that the author had changed the POV. Like, I think it would have been so fun to have Carden's POV at the beginning of this novel to really like feel what he was feeling. And if you've read this, you understand what I'm talking about, but if you haven't, it just would be nice to have like multiple POVs. And that's my only point of view there. Okay, so now I'm gonna be talking about everything overall. This might have some spoilers, so if you don't want any spoilers, I would probably click off of this video now, and thanks for watching. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up and subscribe. But for those who have read the books and you want to relive it, keep watching because I'm gonna give some fun overall feelings I had. So honestly, girls, ladies, gentlemen, men, everyone, please, Carden is by far maybe one of my favorite book boyfriends. I said it. Carden is maybe one of my favorite book boyfriends. The only one that might top him is Rysand from the Rose of Court and Thorns series, or Four from the Divergent series. Those two boys, as well as Carden, they just have like this meanness to them, but yet are so caring and so nice, and have the main girl character in their mind and are protective, that you're like, oh, they can become the nicest person ever for this one person. So cute. I don't know. Anyways, Carden was maybe one of my favorite now. I want to talk about each character as a breakdown too, so let's do it. So Jude. Jude is such a powerful female, all right? Like, the way she was scheming, the development of her being like a badass, just loved it. Carden, I feel like I've already spoken enough about him that I'll leave that be. But let me read this quote, you know, because it's cute, from the book. I've wanted this and feared it, and now that it's happening, I don't know how I will ever want anything else. Cuteness, the two of them, like, that is adorable, right? All right, Nasazia? She was that like bitch underneath the water. Anyways, I could not waste my breath on her right now. She drove me nuts, and I just don't love her. And that's all I can say about her. I hated her. She made me annoyed. I honestly thought Carden was gonna choose her at one point, and that was pissing me off. Okay. Locke, oh, also hated him. Like, he was just like all around just rude. Just rude. I thought like when he started to like fake love Jude, I understood that part. I actually caught that earlier than it was revealed. But I thought that for some reason that was going to turn into some sort of scheme, and that he was going to go against Jude's sister, and that something was going to happen there that would make him kind of more of a powerful character, or turn into this like love triangle or something interesting. No, he was just a douche. The whole time he was just a douche. There was nothing developing there. He just sucked, you know? He just sucked. He even caught this one guy's true name and just took advantage of it, because he sucks. So that's Locke. And then Taryn, which is the sister, she got me in the feels, okay? She could almost have her own book just like from her POV, because she's like going through such a power struggle, like almost like an abusive relationship with Locke. And she's also like Jude and wants to stay in the Fae world. I always say Fae world. Sorry if I'm saying this wrong. But she wanted to stay there as well. She was going a different route of marriage instead of like a power strike like Jude was. And I just think it would be really interesting to read her point of view, because she always felt really like powerless, and that's why she was going through an abusive relationship with Locke. But then she also like pulled off at the end to be so powerful and like help her sister and just be a badass as well. So I think she would be really interesting to read her POV, whole story just on her. I could do it. And let me read a quote from her as well. I wish he hadn't used me to test my sister's love for him. I wish he hadn't let him. Interesting, right? Interesting. I could use her whole story. I could. All right, and then next I'm going to talk about Maddock. So I I wish I could say that I hated him, but I really enjoyed him in the book because, like, he created this family dynamic that isn't typically used in a story. There's multiple times in the book where he kept saying family is first and was trying to persuade Jude to put family first, which I thought was gonna kind of be the ending of the story. I thought eventually she would see Maddock's side, especially after ending of the second book. I was like, maybe she'll kind of go into Maddock's side here and realize that, yeah, family is first and he does have a good scheme to him, and maybe like all along he was gonna give her power if she had not gone to Prince Dane and she had let her father like ruin the kingdom the way he did and just followed along with him. Maybe he was gonna give her power. Like, I thought maybe in the end it would be a whole family first dynamic, family reunion dynamic, and I'm so excited that it wasn't. Like, the way that it turned, and she just straight up was like, no, you ain't the guy for me, you murdered my parents, and you have done so many lies, and you're really only doing this for yourself. I liked, because I was really worried that it was gonna turn into him being correct about family first, and I just thought that would be kind of boring. Like, well played, well used, and I just thought it would be kind of boring output. So I liked him as a character because he gave a twist and turn and a lot of schemes that I was not expecting. So that was cool. So he's kind of cool, I guess, you know? And that's all the characters I'm gonna review. Other than that, I don't really have any other final thoughts. I just love this series so much, and I'm sad that it's over. And I wish I could reread it without knowing what happens. Maybe in a couple years my memory will fade and I can reread it again, but I hope that this video was fun for you. Please give me a thumbs up, subscribe down below. I'll see you for my next video, but thanks for sticking around, guys, and I'll see you later. Bye.